So, I had to move. It was one of those situations, you know? My lease was up, my roommate was bailing to go live with his girlfriend, and the rent prices in my city were just insane. I spent weeks on all the apartment apps, getting more and more depressed. Everything I could actually afford was either in a super rough neighborhood or looked like a crime scene. That's when I found this place. It was in an older building, one of those pre-war brick monsters with a fancy name carved over the door, but the inside was pretty, well, rustic is a kind way to put it. The ad was for a cozy garden-level studio. Garden level is just real estate talk for basement. But hey, the rent was cheap, really cheap. Like, is this a typo? Cheap. I went to see it. The building's super. This old guy named Mr. Henderson just grunted and unlocked the door. The apartment itself, 1B, was okay. It was long and narrow. The only window was a tiny horizontal slit high up on the wall, and it looked out onto a concrete well where you could see people's feet walking by on the sidewalk. But it had its own entrance, separate from the main lobby, just down a small flight of stairs from the street. It had character, I told myself. It was all I could afford. So, I took it. The first week was just moving. Unpacking boxes, ordering takeout, trying to figure out where the hell to put my couch. The walls were thick, really thick. I never heard my neighbors, which I thought was a huge plus at first. I'd come home from my late shift at the restaurant, unlock my private door, and just be in my own little concrete box. It was isolating, though. My cell signal was terrible down there. I had to stand in one specific corner near the door to send a text. And the silence, it wasn't a normal, quiet night in the city silence. It was a heavy, dense, soundproof silence. It felt like I was the only person in the world. My apartment was long, like a railroad car. You walked in, you had the main room, then a tiny kitchen, and at the very back, the bathroom. But in the main room, there was this one weird thing. In the middle of the longest wall, there was this small wooden door, maybe 3 feet high. It looked like an old dumbwaiter or a utility closet. It was painted over with the same thick beige paint as the walls, and it was secured with a heavy-duty, rusty old padlock. When I asked Mr. Henderson about it during the walkthrough, he just shrugged. "Pipe access," he mumbled. "Building's old. Just leave it. You don't got a key. I don't got a key. Don't worry about it." So I didn't. I put my bookshelf right next to it and tried to forget it was there. This started about 2 weeks in. I was asleep and I woke up. You know that feeling where you're not sure what woke you up. The apartment was dead silent. I was just about to roll over and go back to sleep when I heard it. It was a low, muffled sound. It was rhythmic, but slow. I sat up. It was 3:17 a.m. I listened. It went for about 10 seconds, and then it stopped. "Pipes," I mumbled, and went back to sleep. It happened again the next night. 3:17 a.m. This time, I got out of bed. I put my ear to the wall, trying to find the source. It was coming from inside the wall, right where that little padlocked door was. I put my ear right up to the wood of the little door. The sound was stronger there. It was a heavy, dull sound, like someone hitting a piece of wood with a soft mallet. This became my new routine. Every single night, or at least every night I was home at 3:17 a.m., the thumping would start, last for about 10 or 15 seconds, and then stop. I started to get annoyed. It was wrecking my sleep. I complained to Mr. Henderson, and he looked at me like I was crazy. "Lady," he said, "it's the boiler. It's the pipes. The building's old. Wear earplugs." So I tried. But the thumping, it wasn't just a sound. I could feel it. It was this low vibration that I could feel in my chest. And I started to think, it didn't sound like pipes. Pipes hiss and clang. This was different. This sounded methodical. This is when things went from annoying to terrifying. It had been about a month. I was sleep-deprived and on edge. I was sitting on my couch, trying to watch a movie, but I was really just waiting. It was almost 3 a.m. 3:17 a.m. The thumping started. But this time, it was followed by something new. A scratching. It was a dry, scraping sound, like fingernails. Or no, more like a dog's claws. Scrabbling on the other side of that little wooden door. My blood turned to ice. I didn't move. I just sat there staring at the door. The scratching got more frantic. It sounded like something was trying to get out. It went on for a solid minute, the thumping and the scratching, and then, as suddenly as it started, it all just stopped. I didn't sleep in my bed that night. I slept on the couch with all the lights on. The next day, I went over to the door. I was shaking. I got on my hands and knees and looked at the padlock. It was old and rusty, just like I remembered. But now, around the keyhole, I saw new, bright metal. Scratches. I completely lost it. I called the super, Mr. Henderson, and I demanded he open the door. I told him I heard an animal, a raccoon, or a giant rat trapped in the wall. He came down, grumbling, with his big ring of keys. He tried a few, but then just sighed and pulled out a pair of bolt cutters. "Gonna have to buy a new lock," he grumbled. He snapped the padlock. The sound echoed in the small apartment. He pulled the rusty metal clasp off, and then he tugged on the small door. It didn't budge. It was stuck, sealed with decades of that thick, beige paint. He pulled harder, grunting. "Forget it," he said. "It's painted shut. If there was a rat in there, it's dead by now. It's fine." He left. He just left. He left the broken lock on the floor and the door unsealed. That night, I was too scared to stay. I went and slept at a friend's house. I told her my apartment was being fumigated. I stayed there for 2 days, but I couldn't crash on her couch forever. I had to go back. When I got back, the first thing I did was check the door. It was closed, just as I'd left it. I felt stupid. I was letting my imagination run wild. It was just an old, empty building. I decided to take a shower and just go to bed. I went into the bathroom at the back of the apartment. I turned on the water, and as the room filled with steam, I started to relax for the first time in days. And that's when I heard it. From the main room, a single loud crack, like a piece of wood splintering. I turned the shower off. My heart was in my throat. I stood there, dripping, not making a sound. Then I heard it again. It was the sound of that little door swinging open. I was frozen. I was trapped in the bathroom at the very back of the apartment. The only way out was through the main room, right past that door. I heard a sound, a wet, slapping sound on the hardwood floor. Then a drag. It was coming from the closet. It was moving. It was in my apartment. I grabbed the towel rail and yanked it off the wall, holding it like a club. I didn't have my phone. It was on my nightstand. It was moving slowly. I could hear it exploring the main room. I tried to quiet my breathing, but I was hyperventilating. Then, the sound stopped. It was in the middle of the room. I knew, just knew, that it was between me and the exit. I couldn't stay in there. I had to move. I counted to 3, grabbed the flimsy shower curtain and ripped it down. And I threw it out into the hallway, toward the main room. The second it hit the floor, I heard a hiss. A wet, gurgling hiss. And then a scramble. The slap-drag sound was suddenly fast, moving toward the shower curtain I'd thrown. That was my chance. I bolted. I didn't look. I just ran. I burst out of the bathroom, sprinted through the dark kitchen and into the main room. I didn't look at what was on the floor. I didn't look at the thing that was hissing and tearing at the plastic shower curtain. I just kept my eyes on my front door. I felt something cold brush my ankle. I screamed, fumbled with the deadbolt, threw the door open, and scrambled up the concrete stairs to the sidewalk, not even bothering to close the door behind me. I ran for 3 blocks before I collapsed on a street corner in my bathrobe, shaking and sobbing. The unresolved aftermath. I never went back. Not ever. I called the police from a payphone. I told them someone broke into my apartment. They went and checked. The officer who called me back sounded bored. He said the apartment was empty, that the door was wide open, and that it was a mess. He said, "There was no one there, sir, but you should probably call your landlord. Your apartment's been damaged." I just hung up. I lost everything. My laptop, my clothes, my phone, my furniture, everything. I broke the lease, and I didn't even care about the deposit. I moved to a different city a month later. I still have nightmares. Not about a monster, not about a face. I've never seen it. My nightmares are just sounds. A few years later, I got curious. I was in a better place mentally, and I tried to look up the history of that building. I couldn't find much, just old city records. But I did find one thing, an old, digitized newspaper article from 1924. It was about the building's construction. It said the work crew had been plagued by setbacks, and it mentioned that before the building was built, the land had been the site of a private, unmarked cemetery. I don't know what was in that apartment. I don't know what it wanted, or what was making that thumping sound. But sometimes I think the thumping wasn't it. I think the thumping was a warning, and the scratching was the sound of whatever was in there, telling the warning to stop. But the worst part, the part that keeps me awake now, when I ran past, I felt it brush my ankle, but I also smelled it. It was this awful, coppery smell, like old pennies, and like rotten meat. Thanks for watching. If that story gave you chills, help us reach our goal of 10,000 likes. What was the scariest part? Let me know in the comments. If you know someone else who loves good horror content, please share this video with them. And finally, if you haven't already, subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next nightmare.